Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be talking about how using a specific form of empathy can really get you a lot more results in school, in life, and in your career. So this is a skill set that needs to be taught, and it is empathy. You hear about it a lot if you study successful people. Gary Vaynerchuk talks a lot about how empathy is why he's so successful in business and selling. And other leaders in the world, such as Chris Voss, famed hostage negotiator for the FBI, he talks a lot about tactical empathy in his book, and as well as his course, which I checked out at masterclass.com. By the way, if you want to check out masterclass.com, there's a link below. In terms of empathy, what is it and why does it matter? How can it help you? Well, empathy in its base definition form is basically the ability to see things from other people's eyes. And by doing so, you will understand what they desire and what they're concerned about. And then you'll be able to better present your argument and then form a better win-win situation. What most people do is they're selfish and they don't use empathy. So all they say is what they want. And of course, the other person, since they're often also selfish, they'll say, I don't care about what you want. I want this. And they just continue to be stubborn and butt heads and see from very kind of blinded, narrow perspectives. And of course, that usually doesn't end in something that's agreeable or successful. So how can you use empathy well, and what is this special form of empathy that I want to talk about? Well, it is called contextual empathy. Now, there's the base form of empathy, the simple form, which I have mentioned, but then there's also contextual empathy. What is this? Well, this is a term that I coined, but that doesn't mean that I invented it. A lot of people already do this and understand this, and this is something that I've discovered that's really important. It's kind of a more deeper layer of empathy, but the definition in my eyes is basically not just understanding the small stuff in front of you, like what they care about and what they're concerned about in the moment, but also their lifestyle and what they're struggling through and how their life may differ from yours and all the environmental factors that may be affecting that person in that situation. Now, if you ever study anyone who is pretty good at social skills and emotional intelligence and empathy, they probably already do this. And you got to think about it because it can be very beneficial. Let me give you an example that's very relevant to maybe young students who are watching this. Let's say you are about to apply for your first internship and you've made it to the second round, and now you have to be interviewed before they decide who gets the internship. So I'm going to pretend to kind of just be the intern and walk in from this side. Hey, thank you so much for your time here today. I'm so glad that I made it to this round. Oh, thank you so much. Sit down. So, what do you do? Why should you be hired today? Tell me about yourself. Okay, we're going to pause the situation right there. Now, most people who are young, new to any type of job applications or empathy, they may just talk about themselves and what they want and why they want this job and them, basically. Because, and it's not a bad thing in some cases, it's just natural. A lot of people are just naturally selfish. The issue is the hiring manager only cares about what they want. So talking about what you want is really not going to help, especially if you go into excessive detail about your life story and your hobbies and how at 7 years old you climbed a tree and built a treehouse. He usually doesn't care about that stuff, or she. So let's run this scenario from this viewpoint of someone who doesn't have any empathy. Well, when I was 2 years old, I really liked to climb trees, and I built this tree house, and basically I really fell in love with nature, and this internship studies nature, and I really like nature, so I want this internship because nature is a great fit for me, and I think it would help my career, and I think it would really help me grow. Let's pause right there. So that's what the average person does. And if that person's lucky, that person might be able to still hit on some things that the hiring manager cares about too. Like, for example, just by talking about himself, he was able to kind of reveal that he was passionate. But of course, this is not always the best approach because you're going to be competing with other people, some of which who have already gotten that understanding of empathy. So, how will they do this differently? Now, this is not contextual empathy yet. This is just one step above that, and that's just this is kind of higher base level empathy. Well, that person would kind of talk about what the hiring manager cares about, what they want, maybe even try and parse that out and learn what they care about, or they may have done their research ahead of time. And so that person might be like say something like this: I believe I'd be a great fit for this internship because you want someone who's hardworking, gets the job done, is very passionate about nature and studying the outdoors. And I have all three of those things. And here's specific examples from my work in school that shows that. I finished all these AP classes. I always got the work done even though there was tons of homework assignments. And then in terms of nature, I scored the highest tests on highest grades on a lot of the school projects and tests on nature, including environmental biology and mammalian biology for environmental outdoors savanna creatures. So we're just going to pause there. I made that up on the spot, but you get the point. It's a skill that you can practice, and what I've been doing is I've positioned myself to what that person would care about. Now, where does contextual empathy come in? Now, it doesn't always have to be in a internship application. I'm talking that these skills can be valuable anywhere, whether that's selling someone, whether that is trying to negotiate, whether that is trying to come to an agreement with someone, whether that is trying to win someone over. A lot of communication comes down to empathy so that you can really find a more smooth situation, even if it's as simple as figuring out that they're uncomfortable because of certain things that were said in a group setting, and then make sure those things get addressed so that it's a more harmonious culture. So what is contextual empathy? As I mentioned, it's about kind of their lifestyle and understanding where they are in their life, because that can affect things too. For example, consider a hiring manager or boss or teacher who is very, very busy all the time. This person may be much more irritable, and small requests for time could be seen as something that is a big deal for them because they don't have any time. And then, sometimes, let's just say, there's maybe some stuff going on personally that's affecting their state of mind. So you might be saying, well, I can't really figure out all that, how am I supposed to figure that out? I'm supposed to assume that I know this stuff? And, you will run into cases where the other person will afterwards say, like, you really should have paid attention to, how busy I was, because that was not the best way of reaching out or trying to answer or kind of communicate with me. That's happened to me before. And I guess one example, there's been many different scenarios, but one is when you reach out to people who are very busy. Maybe they're entrepreneurs or they are managers at established companies. And so by failing to realize their situation, which may be different than yours, you might phrase things, or I might phrase things wrong in my outreach, which will lead to kind of failed situations. For example, I have a podcast. When I pitch people to be guests on a podcast, that can backfire. Or when I reach out to someone to pick their brain for a coffee meeting, based on how I phrase it, or maybe the lack of work I put into certain things, that can really affect it if that person is contextually very busy. Someone who's very busy and so forth, they may not like it when, I come to them and then he says yes, and I don't propose a few time ranges where we can meet in their time zone. And something as small as like putting it in my time zone or only listing one or two time frames when I'm available could really irk that person. and set them off and make them say no. Whereas in another situation, someone who's more carefree or has more time may not really care as much. So those small things can really make a big difference in getting to that yes. And so contextually, you don't have to know everything about them, but the point is that you could probably learn more than you think you do. And most people, you're competing with people who don't even really consider that, and if they do, it's on a small level. And so, worst case situation, what ends up happening is you learn the hard way, which still isn't that bad. And they'll say stuff like, you really should have thought of like my situation, and the reason that I ended up saying no was because you didn't really understand how busy I am and how much time I have to do things, and you made it difficult for me, and you should have made it easy. And the natural reaction might be, oh my gosh, how could I have known that? But sometimes you can start to kind of parse that out and at least pick up a little bit more, just based on, their job title or their standing, or maybe how they respond, or just, the general situation of who they are, how they conduct themselves, their personality and everything. And, let's say someone's a lawyer. That's already a data point that you can add, because lawyers are usually very busy. Same with doctors. And so that's already one thing on their mind. So once you have that contextual standpoint, you can even create all sorts of small things that you can tweak to improve how you come across from an empathetic standpoint. Even timing. For example, if someone you're gauging is really having an off day, they're really pissed off, then they're emotionally in a state where they're less likely to be happy, to be helpful to you. And so if you come to them at that point, right after that mood shift, with an ask, then you're shooting yourself in the foot, because they're going to be angry. They're probably less likely to say yes. And it may seem simple, it may seem obvious, but people make this mistake so often. A few years ago, I read a book by Donald Trump, and he said that there's this one assistant he had who was a fabulous assistant, but she had poor timing, and he thought that this was a skill that this assistant should have learned. And because he was clearly coming off a phone call where he was very mad and in a very bad state of mind. And unfortunately, that assistant chose that moment to come in and ask for a raise. Unfortunately, he ended up declining that raise, and if she had come at a different time, he would have definitely said yes. But that's a state of mind, and of course it's a kind of emotional thing. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong that he did this, because if someone deserves a raise, maybe he should have still done it later. But the point was that people are emotional, and given their contextual life, having that empathy of seeing where they are, where the stresses are, if it's a point where you sense it, and sometimes they'll tell you, or you'll hear it from other people who have heard it from that person, that something's going on. Maybe their family life is a mess and their children are misbehaving and it's really stressing them out. That's something that you can kind of put into that puzzle. Now, it doesn't have to be major personal issues or anything like that. It can just be about just general contextual life and personality and so forth. For example, someone who is maybe more brisk to the point, and you can sometimes gauge that fairly quickly off personality after meeting them. And then you let's say you're joining an internship for a workplace that's super fast-paced environment. Well, those two factors together, you probably get a situation where that person probably wants you to kind of take charge from time to time, and just like catch the ball when things get missed, because things are moving so fast. So those are small tweaks you can make to how you come across, so that you don't drop the ball or seem like you're someone to drop the ball. And so think about that. By understanding this, you're already performing at a much higher level than most people who, at a base level, just talk about what they want themselves. And even if you're competing with others who have empathy, they may just be looking at things from a more micro level of, what does this person care about in this moment? What do they want? and what are they concerned about, which is still better than the selfish level, but not as good as the level where you're taking consideration into that, but also the larger contextual situation into, who is this person? Is she a mother of three? Is she going through a stressful time or a peaceful time in her life? Is she this type of personality or more of this type of personality? Is she carefree? Is she assertive? Is she stressed out? Is she not? And those types of deals can really have an impact. Now, of course, some people are lucky enough to naturally understand all this, but some of us are definitely something that had to learn this through studying successful people or watching YouTube videos like this. But either way, you are getting ahead of the crowd. And if you want to kind of go into more detail about this, you could check out Chris Voss. He has a online course on this through masterclass.com. If you go through my link below, it's an affiliate link, which means if you purchase through my link at no extra cost to you, I get a small commission. I think masterclass.com is a fantastic product with the highest quality courses. So that's why I think it's well worth it. But if you end up preferring something else or trying to go for free, the free way, which is definitely a bit more of a headache because you have to piece together the parts. You could probably go on YouTube and search for Chris Voss, and he's given a lot of free talks that are an hour long. Or you can even try and find a more affordable option, which would be Chris Voss's books or audiobooks. He has a great book that I'm going through now called Never Split the Difference. And it's basically his guidebook to proper empathy and negotiation based off his years in the FBI. Very popular, well-known book. I'll leave a link below for that as well. But really useful stuff. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.